The dam has broken. For half a decade, the global financial oligarchy established a price ceiling at $50, defending it with fabricated contracts, escalating margin requirements, and a deliberate suppression of market information. But just 3 days ago, on the 6th of December, 2025, that artificial barrier didn't just crumble, it dissolved. The price of silver surged past $59. And as I address you today, Tuesday, the 9th of December, we are witnessing a phenomenon not seen in 45 years, true price discovery. The mainstream financial media appears bewildered. They are characterizing this surge as a speculative frenzy, urging investors to secure profits due to an overextended relative strength index and proclaiming $59 as an exorbitant valuation. They are fundamentally mistaken. $59 is not the peak, it is the foundation. What the financial charts fail to illustrate, and what institutions like JP Morgan deliberately conceal, is that the mechanism employed to keep silver artificially low was not solely reliant on paper derivatives. It was underpinned by a tangible reserve, a stockpile of readily available inventory that the world has been steadily depleting since 2021. I have meticulously analyzed the figures, traced the supply deficits reported by the Silver Institute, monitored the withdrawals from the LBMA, and documented the substantial influx of silver into India. The implications are stark. Since 2021, global consumption has outpaced new mine production by 1.1 billion ounces. Let that magnitude resonate. 1.1 billion. This deficit is equivalent to the total annual output of all silver mines in Mexico, Peru, and China combined, wiped out entirely. It is gone, consumed by solar panel manufacturing, buried in landfills, and secured within private repositories in Mumbai. This reserve of 1.1 billion ounces served as the buffer that enabled financial institutions to suppress prices, acting as a hidden fund to bridge any shortfalls. However, as of this month, that clandestine fund has been exhausted. In the next 20 minutes, I will elucidate the concept of the vacuum effect, demonstrating why there is virtually no technical impedance between $59 and $100. I will establish that the burgeoning solar energy sector has rendered demand for silver completely inelastic. Furthermore, I will explain how major Indian investors strategically acquired silver at its lowest point while Western entities were divesting at its apex. The deficit is undeniable, the vaults are depleted, and the vacuum is now palpable. This is the narrative of the 1.1 billion ounces that have disappeared and the consequential impact on the dollar's standing. Let us commence with the financial realities. To comprehend our trajectory towards $100 and beyond, we must first grasp the magnitude of the shortfall we have created. Throughout the majority of the 2010s, the silver market operated in a surplus. Production consistently exceeded industrial and commercial demand, leaving reserves to accumulate in secure storage facilities in London and New York, which in turn maintained stable, uneventful prices. Then came 2021, the pivotal year that reshaped the market landscape. In 2021, the deficit was modest, but by 2022, it had escalated dramatically. The Silver Institute reported a deficit of 237.7 million ounces. In 2023, this deficit continued with another 140 million ounces. By 2024, the shortfall widened further to 215.3 million ounces. And as we conclude the fiscal year of 2025, preliminary estimates indicate that an additional 200 million ounces have been consumed. Summing these figures, since the commencement of this decade, we have experienced a cumulative structural deficit of nearly 800 million ounces. However, this calculation omits certain critical factors. It does not account for the significant divestment from silver-backed exchange-traded funds, with investors withdrawing physical metal into private holdings. When we factor in the depletion from the LBMA vaults, which have seen a 30% reduction from their peak in 2021, and also consider the enthusiastic accumulation by individual investors, the true deficit surpasses 800 million ounces, reaching over 1.1 billion ounces. Consider the implications. The entire global silver mining industry produces approximately 830 million ounces annually. This signifies that over the past 5 years, we have consumed more silver than an entire year's worth of global production. Where did this surplus metal originate? It was drawn from historical stockpiles, from the vast reserves held in London warehouses, remnants from the 1990s, and strategic government reserves. We have essentially been drawing from our long-term savings to meet immediate needs, and the financial cartel actively facilitated this. As long as there was hidden silver to inject into the market, they could point to the vaults and assert, "See, abundant metal, no shortage." But quantitative analysis is irrefutable. A deficit cannot persist indefinitely. Eventually, the savings account is emptied. This is precisely what transpired this week, leading to the breach of the $59 threshold. The phantom silver reserves have been depleted. The accessible inventory within the LBMA, the metal available for lease, is effectively non-existent. The registered inventory within COMEX has dwindled to negligible amounts. Consequently, every new solar panel, every advanced missile system, every new smartphone manufactured must now rely on silver that was extracted from the earth only recently. There is no buffer, no discretionary fund. In a market characterized by inelastic demand, demand that must be satisfied regardless of price, and with the elimination of the supply buffer, price adjustments are not gradual. They become exponential. The 1.1 billion ounces did not simply evaporate. They were the ballast that kept the price grounded, and that mooring has now been severed. Skeptics, however, contend that if silver reaches $60 or $80, demand will inevitably contract. They posit that solar manufacturers will transition to copper or reduce their silver usage. This assertion represents the most significant deception currently propagated on Wall Street, and I intend to dismantle it with a single acronym, TOPCon. For years, the solar industry predominantly utilized PERC technology, which, while efficient, incorporated approximately 10 milligrams of silver per watt. However, PERC technology reached a plateau in its efficiency gains. In the energy sector, efficiency is paramount. Consequently, the industry underwent a significant shift, migrating to TOPCon and HJT cell technologies in 2023 and 2024. The critical issue here is that TOPCon technology requires 13 milligrams of silver per watt, while HJT demands 22 milligrams. This indicates a trend towards increased silver utilization, not decreased. The argument regarding the feasibility of substituting copper has been thoroughly examined. Copper, unfortunately, oxidizes and corrodes, severely compromising the lifespan of solar panels. When marketing solar farms with a 25-year warranty, employing a metal prone to degradation within 5 years is untenable. Silver is indispensable. Let us examine the economic implications of the solar energy surge. Assuming a manufacturing cost of $200 for a solar panel, with silver priced at $25 per ounce, the silver content would represent approximately $15 or 7.5% of the total cost. Presently, with silver at $59, that same quantity of silver would cost approximately $35. Would a manufacturer cease production? No. Would governments retract their solar mandates? Unlikely. They would simply adjust the panel's retail price from $200 to $220. The demand for silver within the solar sector is inelastic. A 100% increase in silver's price translates to only a 10% increase in the final product's cost. This grants silver a pricing power unmatched by most other commodities. A doubling of oil prices typically leads to reduced consumption. However, a doubling of silver prices does not deter manufacturers like Samsung or First Solar. They are compelled to continue purchasing. Furthermore, recall the deficit we previously discussed. In 2023, solar energy consumed 193 million ounces of silver. In 2024, this figure exceeded 230 million ounces. Projections from the University of New South Wales suggest that by 2030, solar energy could account for 85 to 98% of global silver reserves, not annual production, but the total silver remaining in the Earth's crust. We are essentially depleting the planet's resources to achieve environmental sustainability. The readily accessible silver has been exhausted. Therefore, when you observe silver priced at $59, do not perceive it as expensive, but rather as essential. Industrial consumers are not consulting price charts. They are reviewing their production schedules and experiencing significant apprehension. They are the primary purchasers at this juncture. They are not engaging with paper contracts on exchanges. Rather, they are directly contacting refineries, stating, "We will acquire all your available inventory at any price you set." This explains why the spot price is currently leading the futures price. The physical market is signaling an urgent demand. To identify the victor in this economic contest, look beyond Wall Street and observe India. While Western investors were liquidating their silver ETFs in late 2023 and early 2024, India was undertaking an unprecedented initiative. They were systematically draining the Western supply. Consider February of 2024, a month destined to be etched in history as the beginning of the end for the London vaults. In that single month, India imported 2,295 metric tons of silver. To provide context, this equates to approximately 73 million ounces. The United States Mint produces around 20 million silver eagles annually. In a mere 28 days, India acquired silver equivalent to 3.5 years of total U.S. mint production. The rationale behind this is clear. Indian investors foresaw the impending deficit, recognizing the 1.1 billion ounce shortfall before others did. They understood the immense silver requirements for the solar factories being established in Gujarat and anticipated the emergence of the Gift City Exchange as a challenger to Western financial centers. Consequently, they purchased silver at its nadir, acquiring it when prices were $22 and $24 per ounce. They effectively cleared out the London vaults while the LBMA remained complacent. Now with silver at $59, one might assume India will liquidate its holdings for profit. This is improbable, as in India, silver is not merely a speculative asset, it represents wealth. While it is termed the poor man's gold, it also serves as a critical industrial input for affluent sectors. The silver that has entered India will not be repatriated. It has been transformed into jewelry or incorporated into electronic components within manufacturing facilities. It has exited the readily available market. This is central to understanding the 1.1 billion ounce narrative. That silver did not simply vanish into thin air, it transitioned from speculative hands to robust holdings. The West is now confronting a scarcity, realizing they relinquished their economic insurance to the East for a fraction of its true value. JP Morgan is aware of these dynamics. They meticulously track these capital flows. They observed the 73 million ounces departing in February of 2024 and the subsequent thousands of tons that flowed out throughout 2025. This explains why they have ceased their aggressive short-selling activities and why price suppression tactics have become ineffective. One cannot manipulate a market devoid of physical metal, nor can one engineer a flash crash when India stands prepared to absorb every price dip. The substantial Indian acquisitions have effectively broken the back of short sellers, compelling the West to pay a premium for any available silver. And so, here we are, on December 9th, 2025, with silver at $59. What lies ahead? We are entering a period of unprecedented market expansion. In technical analysis, resistance levels are established by the presence of sellers anticipating a favorable exit. For instance, an investor who acquired silver at $30 5 years ago might choose to sell at $30 to recoup their initial investment, thereby creating resistance. However, who purchased silver at $65, $75, or $85? Virtually no one. There is no overhang of sellers waiting to exit. This signifies a clear path upwards technically, a phenomenon known as a blue sky breakout. When an asset surpasses its all-time high, it enters a phase where price appreciation becomes the sole mechanism for discovering new sellers. We witnessed this with Bitcoin, which surged from $20,000 to $60,000 within months of breaking its previous record. We observed a similar pattern with Nvidia. Now it is silver's turn. However, there is an even more significant price target directly indicated by the 1.1 billion ounce deficit, $100. The justification for $100 is not merely psychological. If we adjust the 1980 high of $50 for inflation using even the government's manipulated consumer price index, that $50 would equate to roughly $170 today. Consequently, at $59, silver remains historically undervalued, approximately 60% below its inflation-adjusted all-time high. Psychologically, however, $100 serves as a powerful magnet. The vacuum effect operates in distinct phases. Firstly, short sellers must cover their positions. Hedge funds still holding short positions are compelled to buy to close their trades, prioritizing survival over price considerations. Secondly, the fear of missing out or FOMO phenomenon will emerge. The general public, having overlooked silver at $25, will observe its ascent to $60 on news reports and rush to invest. Thirdly, and most critically, industrial entities will experience a surge of panic. When companies like Tesla and Samsung realize that the 1.1 billion ounce buffer has been depleted, they will transition from opportunistic purchasing to preemptive procurement, engaging in hoarding. This hoarding behavior inherently exacerbates scarcity, driving prices higher. Elevated prices, in turn, incentivize further hoarding, creating a virtuous cycle for physical asset holders and a catastrophic one for financial institutions. The disappearance of the 1.1 billion ounces has created the conditions for this vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. Price will rapidly ascend to fill it. I anticipate a swift progression from $59 to $75 before the conclusion of this year. $100 is not a distant target for 2030. It is a realistic projection for 2026. The 1.1 billion ounce deficit was not an unintended consequence. It represented a deliberate transfer of wealth. It was a shift from the impatient to the patient, from those who believed in paper assets to those who recognized the tangible reality of physical commodities, and from the West to the East. For 5 years, the market data was screaming. The Silver Institute's reports were publicly accessible, LBMA vault data was available, and India's import figures were transparent. Every market participant had the opportunity to observe the emerging deficit and acquire silver at prices of $22, $25, or $30. However, most heeded the pronouncements of television pundits and financial institutions. Now the buffer is gone, the $59 price ceiling has been shattered, and the vacuum is pulling prices upward. If you are observing this transmission and still hold unallocated accounts, SLV shares, or pooled unallocated assets, you are essentially standing in a burning structure, placing your faith in the solvency of the fire insurance company. Secure physical metal if it is still attainable, because the 1.1 billion ounces that have vanished will never reappear, and the subsequent billion ounces required to meet demand will command a substantially higher price than $59. The anticipated short squeeze is not approaching. It is already here. I will see you at $100. Subscribe.